Good morning. This is ABC 13 News from Houston with a special report. Since last evening, multiple cases of homicide have been reported throughout the entire city of Houston, Texas, with the majority having been confirmed as legitimate by the Houston Police Department. The first of these is believed to have occurred last night when a pair of women and a man were all found dead inside the IPIC theater. The scene was particularly gruesome, with the victims all having their
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Houston Police Department in coordination with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Within the past 24 hours, a surge in homicide incidents have occurred within the city of Houston. Due to the similarities shared across the majority of cases reported, it is believed that this is the work of a larger group of individuals. At this time, law enforcement lacks sufficient evidence to be able to narrow down any potential suspects responsible for the confirmed incidents, and as such it is highly likely that the suspects remain at large within Harris County. To ensure the safety of residents, a citywide shelter-in-place order has been issued for the city of Houston. Police activity will be increased within the city as officials search for potential suspects. Residents of Houston will be required to remain indoors at all times with the doors and windows locked and shades drawn, unless you are performing essential activities such as buying food or if there is a medical emergency. In addition, a mandatory curfew will go into effect tonight for all of Harris County, regardless of whether you reside within the city of Houston. All residents must be indoors by 9 p.m. at night and remain inside until 6:30 a.m. the following morning. Failure to abide by the curfew will result in detainment. Exemptions may be made for government employees for work purposes. If you spot anyone outside after curfew hours or engaging in suspicious behavior, do not hesitate to contact local authorities. Remain tuned to local media outlets for further information. Thank you for your cooperation.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to ABC News. We have a special report out of the state of Texas. Over the past few days, homicide cases have seen a sudden and drastic surge across nearly the entire state, beginning within the city of Houston. Further reports of very similar homicide incidents quickly started to pop up throughout many other major cities within the state, such as Dallas and El Paso as just a few examples, with suburban areas also having their fair share of incidents. The lack of any leads on potential suspects for any of the incidents has also raised concern among Texans, with the hashtag genocide trending at #1 on social media platforms. The governor of Texas has spoken on the matter and has stated he is working closely with police departments statewide to put a stop to these killings, and has advised residents not to panic. Some have accused the governor of downplaying the severity of the situation, while the statewide death toll rapidly approaches 1 million. It should also be noted that, in addition to these confirmed to be deceased, several other residents have also been reported missing in the past few days, including the governor's daughter, and the governor declined to comment when asked about the situation. The shelter-in-place and curfew orders remain in effect within Houston, with other cities and suburban areas in the state having implemented similar measures. At this time, we can only hope for a best-case scenario for the Lone Star State.
The following message is transmitted under orders of the Office of the Texas Governor in coordination with the Texas State National Guard and the Department of Defense. Due to the recent rise in homicide incidents throughout the entire state, combined with a lack of progress from law enforcement in identifying the suspects responsible, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the state of Texas. Due to these circumstances, normal activities cannot continue until the current situation is resolved. Effective immediately, martial law will now go into effect throughout the entire state, and the governor has additionally ordered the establishment of a military blockade around the entire state. As of now, all residents are barred from leaving the state, and those attempting to enter the state will not be allowed entry for any reason, unless they have been granted explicit approval from the governor. All highways that go out of state are being cut off, and all commercial flights set to depart from within the state have been grounded. Anyone who conspires to breach the blockade established to enter or leave the state of Texas will be branded as an enemy of the state and will be shot on sight. At this time, all major cities and urban areas within the state borders are now under lockdown, as military forces will be conducting full sweeps of all densely populated areas as part of their efforts to find the parties responsible for the recent murders. All residents are advised to remain in their homes while these searches are being conducted, as military personnel are under shoot-on-sight orders applying to any and all individuals they see. As for life within the state itself, further restrictions will be implemented. The shelter-in-place order now applies statewide and residents are to remain indoors at all times. All businesses, public facilities, and privately funded institutions are ordered to close down. Residents will have rations delivered to their households every week, including 7 days' worth of non-perishable food, water, and clothing. Residents will also be subject to random, unannounced searches of their households by local law enforcement, military, or National Guard troops. If you attempt to resist these searches in any way, you will be detained and charged with interference of an investigation. If we have reason to believe you are a suspect responsible for homicide, you will be shot on sight per the orders by the governor. These laws are to be taken extremely seriously. Any and all violators will be subject to dire legal consequences or possibly even execution. These restrictions are to remain in place indefinitely until it has been determined that all suspects responsible for the recent homicides have been found and executed. We understand that these measures may be harsh, but they have been made necessary in order to ensure the safety of all residents of the state of Texas. These individuals are terrorists that have greatly undermined the integrity of the great state of Texas and cannot be allowed to continue to commit these horrific acts. Your government thanks you for your cooperation.
This is KFDX3 News with special coverage regarding the terrorist situation in Texas. A military blockade has been established around the state, preventing anyone from being able to enter or leave, and those who try will be faced with severe legal repercussions. Life within the state has also reportedly become much more strict, with martial law being imposed statewide. The emergency laws have been criticized by Texas residents, comparing themselves to prisoners and even hostages. The governor has defended the measures put into place, calling them necessary to avenge the lives of those who have been taken by these terrorist monsters. His address, noted for having a very bleak, anger-driven tone to it, has driven some speculation as to whether his actions are truly born of a desire to protect the people of Texas, or if they are fueled by revenge, as it has been noted that the governor's daughter was confirmed to be among the recent victims of the terrorist killings. Many critics of the emergency laws have also described them as being ineffective, as the death toll continues to climb within the state, seemingly unhindered, and law enforcement appears to be no closer to finding any of the suspects responsible for any of these killings than they were before the restrictions were put into place. There have also been concerns raised about the efficiency of the military blockades established around the state, with insider sources describing the process as having been rushed and unlikely to be able to defend itself against any concentrated attack. The governor also refused to comment when asked
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Oklahoma Police Department. All residents are being advised to take precautionary measures at this time. A surge of homicide incidents have recently been reported in the state of Oklahoma, particularly in the cities of Hugo and Lawton. In all confirmed cases, no evidence leading to a potential suspect, including fingerprints, could be found at the scenes of the crimes. It has been noted that the confirmed incidents bear similarities to ones that prompted the statewide lockdown of Texas. The armed forces stationed in Texas have stated the blockade between our states remains secure, and as such it is unlikely that this is the same group, but nevertheless residents should remain cautious. This is an update to the current emergency alert. The following message has been authorized for transmission by the Governor of Oklahoma in conjunction with numerous other divisions of the Oklahoma state government. The armed forces stationed in Texas have just confirmed that the blockade established between the state border has been breached, and that multiple terrorists have likely crossed into the state of Oklahoma. All residents, particularly those who reside close to the state border with Texas, are advised to shelter in place, as the suspects who breached the blockade, described as possessing highly advanced technology including camouflage armor, are considered to be armed and extremely dangerous. Evacuation attempts are not recommended at this time, especially if you reside in the cities of Hugo or Lawton, as this will put you at an increased risk of encountering the suspects who will almost certainly take the opportunity to kill you. Armed forces will soon be deployed to try and prevent the suspects from traveling any further into the state. However, should they be unsuccessful in stopping the suspects, residents should prepare for the statewide declaration of martial law as part of measures intended to prevent the suspects from making their way into other neighboring states. Stay tuned for further updates.
The following message is transmitted by the Department of Defense in coordination with numerous state-level governments. Over the past few days, a majority of states within the southern United States have been breached by a terrorist organization. Mass casualties have continued to be reported throughout the region. Military forces are overwhelmed by the terrorist forces who possess overpowering advanced technologies, and local law enforcement is not equipped to deal with this situation. Under an executive order from the President, the martial law order has been renewed for the states of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and will be extended to include the following states: Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Missouri, Nevada, and California. All residents of these states are advised to shelter in place immediately. Do not attempt to evacuate, as all state borders are being closed and secured by the United States National Guards in order to contain the terrorist threat. Furthermore, being out in the open only increases the risk of being killed by one of these terrorists. Be advised that the terrorists wear camouflage armor that renders them almost completely invisible. Their presence can still be identified by a distinct clicking sound they make. Should a terrorist manage to enter your home, secure yourself in the safest room available, turn off all lights, and remain as still and silent as possible. Under no circumstances should you attempt to fight the terrorists yourself. If you make any interaction with the terrorists, you are as good as dead. Your safety and survival is our top priority. Stay alert, stay aware, and stay safe at all costs.
There's no way she's even considering this.
Well, seeing as we're putting it to a vote soon, I'd say we're past just considering it.
She would never resort to doing something this extreme.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
No, there has to be another way.
We've tried absolutely every other possible way to contain them. Curfews, lockdowns. Nearly half the fucking country is under martial law right now. And guess what? It did fuck all to stop them, and now they've gotten all the way up to Seattle.
But what we're talking about, would be a damn genocide.
It's already a genocide. There's nothing more we can do for them down there. We have to focus on the bigger picture now.
How can you say that?
You think I like that we've gotten to this point? Of course it's fucking devastating, but we have no choice. Or do you want these terrorists to get to your grandma in Michigan? How about your baby niece up in Boston? You want to tell her that she's going to die because you don't even have a spine for these terrorists to rip out of you? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And what about your family?
I'm sorry?
Your mother. Are you really about to argue that she's not worth saving just because she decided to retire in Florida? That just because of where she lives, she now has to die for it? Well?
Like I said, it's a devastating choice, but it's the one we have to make.
I can't make that choice.
Well, then good luck when these ugly motherfuckers come knocking on your door.
This message is broadcasted at the request of the Department of Defense in conjunction with the United States federal government. Over the past few weeks, the majority of the mainland United States has become overwhelmed by attacks by a terrorist group. This group possesses advanced technology and weaponry that has vastly overpowered our armed forces, resulting in the alarmingly rapid deterioration of the U.S. military. This group's exact motives and loyalties remain unknown, with nearly all countries capable of developing such technology having denied any association. These terrorists are estimated to have already claimed over 100 million lives in the U.S., with the map on the screen highlighting the states where the terrorists have a confirmed presence in red. This number includes those of military and law enforcement dispatched to combat the terrorists, who have suffered significant casualties. The death toll continues to rise by the day as the terrorists increasingly prove themselves to be an unstoppable force. It has become clear to the Department of Defense and the federal government that this situation demands for drastic action to be taken. There is currently a significant risk that the United States of America will not survive if the terrorist forces continue their attack at the current rate, and there is also a significant risk that other countries allied with the United States would be targeted next should our nation fall at their hands. This cannot be allowed. Due to these unprecedented circumstances, the President has enacted an emergency protocol designed to stop the terrorist threat from causing more damage than they already have. Under this directive, all states marked in red are being declared as lost, and the use of any weapons necessary has been approved to prevent the terrorists from advancing into the rest of the United States, regardless of the damage it could cause. Multiple ballistic missiles have been launched and will detonate within the hour across all marked states as part of these eradication strikes intended to wipe out the terrorist forces. Additionally, the use of nuclear missiles on major cities with a greater terrorist presence has been authorized in the states of California and Texas. These will also detonate within the hour. Due to being unable to risk the terrorists reaching safe grounds, we have made the difficult decision to not allow any residents the opportunity to evacuate into the safe states at this time. This order extends to all federal and state government officials, as well as military and law enforcement personnel located within these regions. All possible methods of travel in and out of the marked territories, including commercial or private air travel, railways, and highways, have been cut off, and the National Guard will be deployed to ensure there are no trespassers. We understand that this is a shocking decision to all residents. The President, along with the entire federal government of the United States, deeply apologize for these harsh and extreme measures, but the terrorist threat has left us with no other alternatives. Rest assured, we are doing what must be done for the greater good of the nation. Electricity and gas will be cut off from the marked states following the conclusion of this broadcast. All residents are advised to seek a fallout shelter immediately. We wish you all the best of luck. God bless America and all who...
The following message is being transmitted at the request of the United States federal government in conjunction with the Department of Defense. Due to the recent terrorist threat, one which has consumed much of the mainland U.S. and severely depleted our military forces, the President has made the historic decision to authorize eradication strikes throughout 20 U.S. states in order to wipe out the terrorist threat. If you are receiving this broadcast, you are in one of the safe states or the District of Columbia, and thus will be safe from the strikes. Safe states include Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Alaska and Hawaii. Please know that this was not a decision which was made lightly. No one wished for it to have to come to this. However, the terrorist threat has created a situation where it was the only solution available to protect as many U.S. citizens as possible, as well as the nation at large. The President is currently expediting steps to secure the safety of all remaining U.S. citizens. All means of transportation to and from the states marked for eradication strikes have been shut down indefinitely. A military blockade has been established between the marked states and safe states. For the safety of all residents, no one in the safe states is permitted to enter the marked states, and no refugees from the marked states will be accepted into the safe states. There is currently no exact time frame established for when the blockade will be lifted, and it will remain in place until it is confirmed that the terrorist threat has been eliminated. Anyone who attempts to breach the blockade from either side will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Repeating, if you are receiving this broadcast, you are in one of the safe states or the District of Columbia, and no further action is required from you at this time. Stay tuned for further updates.
This is an emergency message from the Government of Canada. This is not a test. The Prime Minister has authorized this emergency message. It has been confirmed that the terrorist group which has become notorious for the chaos they've caused in the US has entered Canadian territory. It is unknown when exactly they crossed into Canada, however there has recently been a surge in homicide cases within southern regions of British Columbia and Alberta.
Il s'agit d'un message d'urgence du gouvernement du Canada. Il ne s'agit pas d'un test. Le Premier ministre a autorisé ce message d'urgence. Il a été confirmé que le groupe terroriste, devenu célèbre pour le chaos qu'il a provoqué aux États-Unis, est entré sur le territoire canadien. On ne sait pas exactement quand il est entré au Canada, mais on a récemment constaté une augmentation des cas d'homicide dans les régions du sud de la Colombie-Britannique et de l'Alberta.
These terrorists are to be considered as armed and extremely dangerous, possessing highly advanced weaponry and technology which makes them invisible to all. It is still unknown what country, if any, this group is loyal to. All residents in British Columbia and Alberta are advised to remain vigilant. Military forces are currently being dispatched to try and stop the terrorists from traveling any further than they already have and from reaching neighboring provinces.
Ces terroristes sont considérés comme armés et extrêmement dangereux, possédant un armement et une technologie très avancée qui les rendent invisibles à tous. On ne sait toujours pas à quel pays, le cas échéant, ce groupe est fidèle. Tous les résidents de la Colombie-Britannique et de l'Alberta sont priés de rester vigilants. Des forces militaires sont actuellement déployées pour tenter d'empêcher les terroristes de se déplacer plus loin qu'ils ne l'ont déjà fait et d'atteindre les provinces voisines.
The United States military will also be providing us with additional assistance, particularly in trying to prevent the terrorists from reaching the U.S. state of Alaska. Bear in mind that these terrorists caused such mass devastation in the United States that they were forced to use weapons of mass destruction throughout 20 of their 50 states, decimating these regions.
L'armée américaine nous fournira également une aide supplémentaire, notamment pour tenter d'empêcher les terroristes d'atteindre l'État américain de l'Alaska. Il faut garder à l'esprit que ces terroristes ont causé une telle dévastation aux États-Unis qu'ils ont été contraints d'utiliser des armes de destruction massive dans 20 des 50 États où ils se trouvent, décimant ainsi les régions.
With these measures taken by the U.S. combined with the only U.S. state bordering Canadian territory they could have entered through being Washington state, it is unlikely the terrorists have large enough numbers to spread as rapidly throughout our country. However, all residents should remain alert and be prepared for any possible contingencies.
Avec ces mesures prises par les États-Unis, combinées au fait que le seul État américain limitrophe du territoire canadien par lequel ils auraient pu entrer est l'État de Washington, il est peu probable que les terroristes soient suffisamment nombreux pour se propager aussi rapidement dans tout notre pays. Cependant, tous les résidents doivent rester vigilants et se préparer à toute éventualité.
Это сообщение было разрешено для передачи правительством Российской Федерации. Это сообщение передается по всей стране России в связи с недавним возникновением страшной угрозы для нашей страны. За последние несколько дней террористическая группа неизвестного происхождения сумела проникнуть в нашу великую страну, причем первая группа была зарегистрирована в Южной Сибири и с тех пор распространилась почти по всей стране. Остается неизвестным, как этой группе удалось проникнуть в нашу страну, несмотря на обширные меры, которые были приняты для того, чтобы не допустить в нашу страну никаких международных угроз, и также неизвестно, как их число продолжает множиться. Российские вооруженные силы понесли большие потери в своих усилиях по защите людей, и общенациональное число погибших уже оценивается в миллионы. Следует также отметить, что Соединенные Штаты Америки недавно предложили помощь в борьбе с этими террористами, предложение, которое было отвергнуто президентом. Было высказано предположение, что эти террористы могут работать на Соединенные Штаты в рамках операции по захвату контроля над нашей страной у нашего великого президента и премьер-министра, однако это не может быть подтверждено в настоящее время. Тем не менее, террористическая угроза очень серьезна, и вся Российская Федерация будет неустанно работать, чтобы увидеть, как она будет побеждена немедленно. Президент и премьер-министр отдали приоритет защите великого города Москвы, который сейчас находится под замком. На данный момент любой, кто попытается въехать или выехать из города, будет расстрелян на месте. Все российские границы закрыты на неопределенный срок. Всем жителям в настоящее время рекомендуется укрыться на месте и не вступать в контакт с террористами. У этих террористов есть технология, с которыми не может справиться ни один гражданский человек, и если они вас заметят, вы уже мертвы. Если вы считаете, что террорист находится поблизости, бегите, если это возможно. Если невозможно уйти незамеченным, прячьтесь, пока террорист не исчезнет. Мы исчерпаем все доступные возможности для защиты российской земли, однако возможно, что использование нашего огромного ядерного арсенала будет необходимо в качестве последнего средства, чтобы остановить террористов. Вся Российская Федерация ценит ваше сотрудничество и обещает, что мы победим это нападение на нашу страну.
The following message is transmitted by the Commonwealth Government of Australia. Having first appeared in the city of Melbourne, Victoria, a terrorist group has since very quickly made its way throughout all of Australia over the past week. The Australian Defence Force was quickly overwhelmed by the technologically advanced enemy forces, resulting in mass casualties throughout every state as the terrorists ran largely unchecked. It is currently estimated that at least 80% of the Australian population is dead, with the highest concentration of casualties being in Queensland. We also regret to inform that the Australian government is currently in a state of complete disarray. The Prime Minister's whereabouts are currently unknown, and the entire cabinet is either dead or in retreat. We lack the resources to continue fighting. Attempts to call on our international allies for help have gone unanswered. This is the end of Australia. The government will cease all operations at the end of this transmission as all surviving officials will attempt to retreat. If you are still alive, it is highly recommended that you evacuate the country if you can. Repeating, Australia has fallen. Do not stay in Australia. There is no more reason.
وهذه رسالة عاجلة لا كافة المقيمين في مصر، والتي تم التصريح بها من قبل الحكومة المصرية بالتنسيق مع وزارة الدفاع المصرية. وصلت الجماعة الأرهابية التي ابتليت بها الولايات المتحدة مؤخرا إلى مصر. لقد استولت المجموعة على جزء كبير من المناطق الشمالية من أمتنا، بما في ذلك القاهرة، ومن المرجح أن تستمر حتى تستولي على دولة مصر بأكملها. أن عدد القتلى من هذه الهجمات يصل بالفعل إلى الملايين، ونظرا للأسلحة المتقدمة التقنيا التي تمتلكها، فأن الجهود التي تبذلها القوات المسلحة المصرية لمكافحة هذا التهديد لم تحقق سوى نجاح ضئيل. في هذا الوقت سيتم إخلاء جميع السكان في المحافظات التالية فورا: مطروح، الإسكندرية، البحيرة، كفر الشيخ، الدقهلة، دمياط، بورسعيد، شمال السيناء، الغربية، المنوفية، القليوبية، الشرقية، الإسماعيلية، الجيزة، الفيوم، القاهرة، السويس، وبني سويف. وعلى جميع السكان في المحافظات المذكورة لتو إخلاء الجنوب على الفور. وقد تخلت الحكومة المصرية عن جميع المحافظات الشمالية بما فيها القاهرة، وتراجعت إلى الجنوب. تم نقل رئيس الوزراء إلى الوادي الجديد وتم التأكد من أنه أمن، ولكن مكان وجود الرئيس غير معروف حاليا. وتجري القوات المسلحة المصرية حاليا عملية بحث على مستوى البلاد عن الرئيس. ضع في اعتبارك أن هذه المجموعة نفسها تسببت في فوضى عارمة في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية لدرجة أنها دمرت أراضيها الجنوبية من أجل حماية الشمال. وبينما نأمل ألا تتعرض مصر لمصير مماثل، يجب على جميع السكان أن يظلوا يقظين. Questo è un messaggio di emergenza della Repubblica Italiana. È giunto alla nostra attenzione che il gruppo terroristico emerso per primo negli Stati Uniti d'America è arrivato in Italia. Non si sa come siano entrati nel nostro paese senza essere scoperti, tuttavia la loro presenza è stata confermata in tutti i territori. Questo gruppo è considerato estremamente pericoloso e mortale, poiché possiede tecnologia e armi più avanzate di quelle attualmente possedute da qualsiasi esercito conosciuto al mondo. Le forze armate italiane hanno tentato di combattere i terroristi e di impedire loro di addentrarsi ulteriormente nel paese, ma finora non hanno avuto successo. A tutti i residenti è attualmente consigliato di rifugiarsi sul posto. Non rendere nota la tua presenza ai terroristi. Se lo fai, sei già morto. Il presidente è stato portato in salvo. La Repubblica Italiana sta attualmente mettendo a punto un piano per preservare la nazione da questi attacchi. Si prega di rimanere vigili e rimanere sintonizzati per ulteriori aggiornamenti su questa situazione in via di sviluppo.
Tenga en cuenta. Este mensaje se transmite con muy baja potencia. El siguiente mensaje es transmitido por el gobierno de México. Durante la semana hemos estado combatiendo a un grupo terrorista que ingresó a nuestro país a través de nuestras fronteras con los Estados Unidos de América. Las Fuerzas Armadas mexicanas han luchado por proteger a nuestros estados de la amenaza terrorista, que posee armamento avanzado que supera lo que nuestras Fuerzas Armadas tienen a su disposición en casi todos los sentidos. Nuestros esfuerzos por convencer a los Estados Unidos de América de que presten asistencia tampoco han tenido éxito. Desafortunadamente, las Fuerzas Armadas mexicanas han sido paralizadas por los terroristas y ya no poseen recursos ni efectivos suficientes para continuar luchando contra los terroristas. También se confirma la muerte del presidente. Nos disculpamos profundamente, pero el gobierno ya no puede protegerlo. Se acabó para nuestro país. Recomendamos a todos los residentes supervivientes que evacúen hacia el sur, pero tenga en cuenta que no podemos ofrecerles garantía de que permanecerán seguros aquí por mucho tiempo. Esta será la transmisión final. La electricidad fluctúa en todo el país y es probable que toda la red eléctrica falle en breve. Repitiendo, esta es la transmisión final. México ya no existe. Todos los residentes deben juntar lo que puedan y salir.
This meeting has been called to order due to the rapidly growing terrorist threat worldwide. This group possesses advanced technologies that nearly all military forces across the world, including the United States of America, have been struggling to combat. All countries, including those who are not members of the United Nations, with the ability to develop such technologies, have denied any association with this terrorist group. And investigations conducted so far have failed to find any connections between this group and any other nation in the world. With countries beginning to collapse, and even the largest, most powerful military forces deteriorating at an alarming rate, this assembly will now vote on whether to permit the use of nuclear weapons in order to stop this threat, regardless of the damage it causes to the globe. Shall more than 2/3 of this body vote in favor, the motion will be passed. 67 nations have voted in favor of the resolution, and 116 have voted against it. This motion will not be passed.
「このメッセージは日本政府によって発信されました。深い悲しみとともに、世界中で最近の大量虐殺行為で悪名高いテロ集団が正式に日本に終焉をもたらしたことを残されたすべての住民に知らせなければなりません。日本の自衛隊は我が国の国民を迅速に攻撃するテロリストを阻止することも封じ込めることさえできず、その高度な技術と兵器は手に負えないことが判明しました。テロリストによってもたらされた混乱により、 政府はほぼ完全に機能を停止した首相は亡くなり、天皇陛下は家族と共に逃亡しました。生き残っている住民の皆様には国外への避難を勧告します。私たちはもうこれらのテロリストを止めることはできません。避難できない場合は、直ちにその場に避難してください。この送信が終了すると、政府は残りのすべての業務を停止します。今後数時間以内に電気とガスが止まります。繰り返しますが、日本は衰退しました。これが私たちの歴史ある国家の終わり。
The western provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, Yukon, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories are currently considered to be very unsafe due to the advancement of the terrorist forces. In addition, the terrorists have also appeared in the...
Alright, I don't know how long I have here, but please listen to what I have to say. These terrorists are actually an alien race called predators who hunt other species for sport. Furthermore, the US government has known about the existence of this race for decades, and has likely known it was them responsible for the ongoing genocide of the human race ever since they first appeared in the US state of Texas. They have been lying to their citizens, the United Nations, and the rest of the world, all in an attempt to cover up the fact that the United States military was the one who provoked the predators to wipe out the human race. The blood that has already been shed is on their hands. I already know that they are going to deny all of this, but I have proof which I will be uploading to the internet for all to see. The truth will come out. I will not let them get away with it.
This is CNN Breaking News.
This is CNN with breaking news. The president has officially confirmed the now infamous terrorist group is of extraterrestrial origin. In a recent press conference addressing a recent hack in the Canadian emergency alert system, wherein the hacker made claims of the terrorists being an extraterrestrial species, which they referred to as predators, the president has confirmed these claims to be true, while also admitting to having known of the true nature of this group since their rapid spread across the U.S. initially began, although she has denied any knowledge of or involvement in a military operation that would have provoked the enemy forces in the first place, promising to investigate the matter and stating that had such an operation occurred, it would have fallen under the previous administration. The president proceeded to apologize for her own actions, while also promising to resign from the presidency once the terrorist crisis is over, asking residents to still trust her to get them through to the end of this crisis, an end that many residents are beginning to fear will never come. Since the terrorists first appeared in the U.S. in November, their numbers have grown exponentially, and their forces are now advancing on a global scale. Many countries have already collapsed due to the overwhelming extraterrestrial forces, while those that haven't are struggling to hold on. The future is very uncertain. This is CNN, and we will continue to provide the most up-to-date coverage on this continually developing situation as long as circumstances permit.
The following message is transmitted at the request of His Majesty's government. The terrorist group which has caused mass chaos globally has brought our great country to the brink of collapse. His Majesty's armed forces failed to prevent the terrorists from entering UK territory despite extensive efforts to monitor any potential infiltration. Once the terrorists started their killing spree in Manchester, we were powerless to stop them from advancing further into the country. We are now out of options. The entirety of the United Kingdom, including London, has been overrun by the terrorists. The royal family are dead. The Prime Minister is dead. The country is in ruins. We have lost. We have advised all surviving soldiers in His Majesty's Armed Forces that they are relieved of their duties and that they should go into hiding immediately, which we also recommend all remaining UK residents that are hearing this broadcast to do. Repeating, the United Kingdom has fallen. The terrorists have defeated us. There is nothing more we can do to stop them. This will be our final broadcast. The national anthem will now be played one final time. Goodbye, and good luck.
This emergency meeting has been called in light of the recent information that the terrorist group, which has continued to bring numerous countries down around the globe, is an extraterrestrial species known as predators. With it also being confirmed that the President of the United States willingly withheld this information from the rest of her citizens and this body. There have been calls to expel the United States from the United Nations. However, that is not why we are meeting today. As it has become increasingly evident that the extraterrestrial threat is one that humanity is not equipped to combat, we will now vote on whether to dissolve the United Nations in its entirety. From there, it will be left up to each individual remaining nation of the world to choose whether or not to surrender themselves to this threat or continue to fight until the very end. Should more than 2/3 of this body vote in favor, the motion will be passed. 91 nations have voted in favor of the resolution, and 17 have voted against it. The resolution is passed. The United Nations is hereby disbanded.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States federal government. Emergency programming has been interrupted to bring you this message. The terrorist group is now confirmed to be of extraterrestrial origin, loyal to no country on Earth. Their presence is now being reported in nearly every part of the world. These extraterrestrials have already brought down numerous countries, with some of the most recent including, but not being limited to, the United Kingdom, Italy, Croatia, North Korea, India, Madagascar, and Brazil. While most that are still standing have suffered mass casualties that only continue to increase by the day. It is estimated that of the over 8 billion people that made up the human population, by now over 4 billion have died at the hands of the extraterrestrials. It is due to the anarchy this extraterrestrial threat is causing globally that the United Nations just recently voted to dissolve the organization in its entirety, leaving all remaining countries to their own devices. At this time, what remains of the mainland US has not yet been breached by the extraterrestrial terrorists. However, we regret to inform residents that we have lost contact with our forces in the states of Alaska and Hawaii. It has been decided to not prioritize re-establishing contact with these states and to discontinue efforts to protect our overseas territories. This also includes unincorporated territories such as Puerto Rico, American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and the United States Virgin Islands, in order to focus on protecting the mainland United States. We understand this may be harsh, but we no longer have the resources available to continue fighting overseas. The President is currently working tirelessly with all divisions of the federal government to ensure the safety and survival of all remaining residents. However, we cannot make any guarantees at this time. All flights going in and out of the mainland U.S. will remain grounded until further notice. The shelter-in-place advisory remains in effect nationwide. All remaining residents are advised to continue to be prepared should the extraterrestrials manage to enter the United States. It has been noted that these extraterrestrials have difficulty seeing individuals with low body temperatures. It is recommended that should an extraterrestrial manage to enter your home, lower your body temperature by any means necessary. If you are cold, there is a higher chance that the extraterrestrials will not see you, although it is not guaranteed. Wait then for them to leave your home and seal all possible entrances so that they cannot re-enter. Do not attempt to attack an extraterrestrial under any circumstance. It is an absolute certainty that anyone who attempts to engage in combat with them will be overpowered and killed. Do not call 911 if you find yourself faced with an extraterrestrial. Local law enforcement is still not equipped to deal with them, and you will only be putting an officer's life in jeopardy. At this time, 911 calls should be reserved for life-threatening medical emergencies. Please note that emergency services have become severely understaffed across the U.S. amidst this crisis, and you may not receive a response. Do not rely on law enforcement or military forces for protection. Please stay tuned for further updates as we continue to work towards preserving the United States.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Colorado State National Guard. This is not a test. The military blockade established around our state has been breached. The breaches have occurred from our borders with Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico, with the perpetrators confirmed to be the extraterrestrial terrorists. A state of emergency has been declared, and all residents are advised to shelter in place immediately. The governor is currently en route to a secure location, and the National Guard is being deployed to combat the terrorists and try to prevent them from advancing north to our borders with Wyoming and Nebraska. Keep a battery-powered radio on hand in the event of a loss of power so that you may stay tuned for further updates. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States federal government. The extraterrestrial terrorists are confirmed to have breached the military blockade between the safe and null territories of the United States. At this time, the terrorists are confirmed to be present in the states of Colorado, Idaho, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia, with the death toll across all these states rising rapidly. Military forces will continue to combat the threat. However, it is currently expected that the entirety of the mainland U.S., including the District of Columbia, will have been completely overrun by the terrorists within the coming hours. The President will now speak on all stations.
My fellow Americans, I truly wish I had better news for you all. I know that I haven't been the greatest leader, and for that, I am truly sorry for falling short of being the leader you deserve. But please know, I did my best to protect you all. This is a threat greater than humanity has ever faced, and we sadly were ill-equipped to stop it. However, this will not be the end of humanity, and it will not be the end of America. As long as we survive, they will not beat us. And for as long as I remain breathing, I will see to it that they never truly beat us. Thank you for this great honor to serve you, the people of this country.
That was the President of the United States. This broadcast will now silence for your safety.
This final message is transmitted by what remains of the United States federal government. It is with deep sorrow that we must inform all remaining residents that the United States of America has officially fallen at the hands of the terrorists, who are confirmed now to be of extraterrestrial origin. The death toll continues to rise globally, and the majority of the world's countries have already collapsed. The President is confirmed dead, as is the Vice President and the First Gentleman of the United States. Numerous other high-ranking officials are also dead or have gone missing amidst the chaos. The federal government has been crippled, with many divisions having already ceased functioning. There are no further options. Nowhere left to run. No one left to turn to. The end of society as we know it is now inevitable. Any surviving state and federal government personnel, along with all military and law enforcement personnel, are hereby relieved of their duties effective immediately. To anyone still alive and listening, thank you for being part of the American dream, for contributing to everything that made this country the great nation it was. From this moment forward, you are all on your own. Hope that one day, the survivors will be able to rebuild, but for now, this broadcast will now conclude with the national anthem being played one final time. May God have mercy on all our souls.